In 2004, Halle Berry was just 2 years past winning an Oscar, a Best Actress win for Monsters Ball, a Bond film under her belt, studios lining up to hand her leading roles.
Is this where the line starts?
So when Warner Brothers offered her the chance to headline a superhero movie built entirely around her, it should have been a layup. A major star, a beloved character, and a genre that was picking up serious steam. Instead, Catwoman became one of the most notorious disasters in superhero film history. The character had been circling Hollywood for over a decade before Berry ever signed on. Warner Brothers had been actively trying to make a Catwoman movie since 1993, cycling through writers, directors, and stars for years. The finished product collapsed so thoroughly that it felt like the worst possible outcome of a process that had every chance to get it right.
It's overtime.
The idea of a standalone Catwoman film goes back to Batman Returns. Michelle Pfeiffer's take on Selina Kyle was one of the most praised performances in the Burton era, arguably more interesting than Batman himself. Warner Brothers saw what audiences saw, and by 1993, a spin-off was already in active development, with Pfeiffer attached. Tim Burton was attached to direct. Daniel Waters, who wrote Batman Returns, turned in a script. That version leaned into the gothic weirdness Burton was known for. It would have followed Selina Kyle to a new city called Oasisburg, a fictional DC version of Las Vegas, dealing with the psychological fallout of her transformation while clashing with a group of male superheroes. Dark and strange and character-driven. Exactly the kind of thing that made Pfeiffer's version resonate in the first place. It never got made. Burton lost interest and moved on to The Nightmare Before Christmas. The studio second-guessed the tone. Waters turned in his script the same day Batman Forever opened, and later joked that releasing a dark, decidedly adult Catwoman script on the day of a family-friendly Batman launch probably wasn't his best logistical move. By the time Batman and Robin cratered in 1997, the entire Batman franchise was radioactive. A Catwoman spin-off connected to that universe suddenly felt like a liability, but the studio kept reworking it. Through the late 90s, new writers came and went. Ashley Judd was attached for a while. Nicole Kidman was considered after Judd dropped out. At one point, the script had almost nothing left in common with the original Waters draft. The character was no longer Selina Kyle. The tone shifted away from gothic noir towards something more generic.
Ooh, that would be fun. We could do each other's hair, talk about boys.
Then, in the early 2000s, Warner Brothers had a Batman vs. Superman crossover film in development, scheduled for a summer 2004 release. When that project fell apart, the studio needed a DC tentpole to fill the gap, and fast. Catwoman became the replacement. It was rushed into active production in 2003, with Berry signing on partly because her own planned project, a James Bond spin-off centered on her Die Another Day character Jinx, had also been cancelled. 2 orphaned projects colliding into one. By this point, the film had been rewritten so many times that the DNA of the original idea was completely gone. The lead character was now named Patience Phillips, a shy, mousy graphic designer at a cosmetics company who gets killed after discovering a corporate conspiracy, then comes back to life with cat powers.
You what?
According to screenwriter John Rogers, the name change from Selina Kyle came down to what he called an insane rights issue. Zero connection to any existing DC mythology beyond the word Catwoman in the title. The studio hired a French visual effects supervisor named Pitoff to direct. His only previous feature was Vidocq, a 2001 French supernatural mystery, notable for being the first film ever shot entirely in high definition. Catwoman was his second feature, and his first in English. The budget landed around $100 million, a massive bet on a director with almost no track record in narrative filmmaking. Berry was paid around $12.5 million for the role.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching-gery. Money, oh money.
The script, credited to a team of 4 writers, read like it had been assembled from the leftover parts of a dozen different drafts, because it basically had been.
I want to die.
The signs were rough before the movie even opened. Warner Brothers posted a rough cut of the trailer online, and the backlash was immediate enough that it was quickly pulled. Early marketing leaned heavily on Berry in the suit, which itself became a point of controversy. The costume was essentially a leather bra, torn pants, and stiletto heels. For a character historically defined by sleekness and power, it looked more like a Halloween costume than a superhero design. Berry promoted the film hard, but the buzz was bad. Reshoots were still happening as late as June 2000. 2004, a single month before the July 23rd release date. Working cuts had revealed confusing dialogue sequences and awkward visual transitions, and new scenes were added to patch the gaps. The planned IMAX release was scrapped entirely because the visual effects delays left too little time for remastering. Writer John Rogers was fired during filming after clashing with producers, and later said that during production, nobody in power knew what movie they wanted to make. Despite all of that, Warner Brothers went heavy on corporate partnerships. Jaguar, Kay Jewelers, Diamond Trading Company, Coca-Cola, Kodak. The studio was treating Catwoman as a franchise launcher. Opening weekend confirmed the worst fears. Catwoman debuted third, behind The Bourne Supremacy and holdover I, Robot, pulling in under $17 million in over 3,000 theaters. It dropped over 60% in its second weekend and was essentially gone from theaters within a month. Critics were baffled by how disjointed the final product felt. The action sequences relied on choppy, over-edited CGI that made the movement look weightless and fake. The basketball scene, a flirtatious one-on-one between Barry and Benjamin Bratt, became an instant punchline for its absurd editing and physics-defying choreography.
This is the one. This is the one I'll be remembered for.
You what?
Sharon Stone played the villain, the wife of a cosmetics CEO whose skin had hardened into living marble from overuse of the company's own product. The performance was fine for what it was, but the concept felt like it belonged in a different, campier movie than the one Barry was trying to sell. Reviews sat in the single digits on Rotten Tomatoes. CinemaScore audiences gave it a B, which, for a summer superhero tentpole, is grim. The film barely crossed over 80 million worldwide against that 100 million budget, a significant loss once marketing and distribution costs were factored in. At the Razzies, Catwoman swept. Worst Picture, Worst Actress, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay. And Barry, to her enormous credit, showed up in person to accept. She brought her Oscar in one hand, the Razzie in the other, and gave a speech that was equal parts self-aware and gracious. It did more for Barry's public image than anything the film itself accomplished. Warner Brothers shelved plans for any Catwoman-related projects for years. A planned direct-to-video animated Catwoman film, which had already been scripted by Batman the Animated Series producer Boyd Kirkland, was scrapped in the wake of the failure. Pitoff, for his part, has yet to direct another feature film. The damage reinforced a belief inside the industry, one that wouldn't fully break until Wonder Woman in 2017.
Kal-El, no!
That is one big pile of shit.
But Catwoman gave studios an easy excuse to keep believing it. The problems had everything to do with the material. The script was incoherent, the direction lacked a clear vision, and the character had been sanded down through a decade of rewrites until she had no identity left. Barry deserved better. She was a movie star, doing her best with material that gave her almost nothing to work with.
Self-empowerment, finding out who you really are, your voice and your power. Catwoman really represents that.
For years, Catwoman existed primarily as a punchline. It showed up on worst of lists, got referenced in video essays about Hollywood failures, and served as a cautionary tale about what happens when a studio develops a project so long that it loses all sense of why it was worth developing. Something shifted, though. Slowly, and mostly online, Catwoman started picking up an ironic appreciation. The basketball scene became a meme. Barry's Razzie speech became iconic. Clips circulated on social media with a kind of affectionate disbelief. A whole generation discovered the film through Twitter threads and YouTube compilations rather than theaters or home video. The film's own screenwriter, John Rogers, called it a shit movie with zero cultural relevance in a 2018 interview. Pitoff, on the other hand, defended it on the 20th anniversary in 2024, arguing the film was ahead of its time and that audiences were unprepared for a superhero film led by a black woman. The truth probably lives somewhere between those two takes. In an era where superhero movies dominate everything, Catwoman looks less like an anomaly and more like an early casualty of a system that hadn't figured itself out yet.
Come down from there, nice and easy.
Cats come when they feel like it.
Studios in 2004 were still treating comic book properties as raw material to be reshaped into whatever genre they thought would sell, rather than building outward from what made the source material work. Barry has spoken about the experience with remarkable honesty over the years. She's acknowledged the film fell short, taken ownership of her part in it, and kept a sense of humor about the whole thing. In 2018, she told an audience that everyone around her had warned her against taking the role. Girl, don't do it. It's going to be the death of you. It's going to end your career. She did it anyway.
It's overtime.
And her career survived because she refused to let the embarrassment define her. The character herself recovered. Anne Hathaway's take on Selina Kyle in The Dark Knight Rises and Zoe Kravitz's version in The Batman both proved that Catwoman could absolutely carry major screen time when the writing and direction supported her. Those performances quietly answered the question that 2004 accidentally raised. What happened with Catwoman was a studio spending a decade chasing a good idea and ending up so far from where they started that they forgot why they wanted to make it. Every wrong turn compounded. Every rewrite moved further from the source. And by the time cameras rolled, the project was running on momentum alone. A title, a budget, and nothing underneath either one.